Alright guys, welcome to Math 0314, Lesson 4.1, Part 2. We had a couple more problems to run through. Now, I'm going to do these problems a little different than what the book does, but I think it makes it a lot easier to solve these problems. So, what I'm going to do first is I want to get rid of the decimal. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this as 75 times 10. Now, the million-dollar question is, what is the exponent going to be? Now keep in mind, I want 75 to turn into 7.5. So what do I have to do? Do I have to multiply by a number to make 75 bigger or to make 75 smaller? Well, I hope you realize obviously it has to be smaller. 7.5 is less than 75. So what does that mean that I have to raise it to? Well, that means I have to raise it to -1. And again, the reason why I have to raise it to -1 is when you're multiplied by 10 to the -1, you're actually multiplying by a fraction, by a proper fraction, I should say, and proper fractions make numbers smaller. So, with that being said, everything else is the same. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this part up, and this becomes 10 to the 10. This is the bottom part is still 10 to the 8. 75 divided by 3 is actually very easy to do in your head. You know it's 25 because 3/4 makes $1. So when we break this down, we get 25 times 10 squared. 10 to the 10th divided by 10 to the 8th. We subtract the exponents and we get 10 squared. Okay. Moving right on. So, wait, oops, one last thing to say about this, okay? And that is, okay, this is not in scientific notation. The reason why I put it in this format, I'm having a tough time scrolling up apparently, and down, the reason why I write it this way is so that we don't have to play with decimals, because I think decimals confuse students, but this is not in scientific notation, and the reason why it's not in scientific notation is because this number has to be between 1 and 10. So how do I convert 25 into 2.5, which would be between 1 and 0 and 10? Well, I have to multiply this by 10 to the -1 or 10 to the 1. Well, if you see here, we want to make the number bigger, so this means it has to be 10 to the 1. So this is now, that's a 1 there, times 10 squared. And because these match up, we can add these, and this gives me 10 cubed. So it's 2.5 times 10 cubed. And there's my answer in scientific notation. All right, if it wasn't asking me in scientific notation, then I would just take this. This 10 squared means you're just going to tack on 2 zeros here. And that would be the easiest one. Here we would move the decimal place over 3, which would still give me the same answer. So hopefully that's not too confusing. Let's move right along. Right? So here we're multiplying. So again, what I would encourage you to do is to move the decimal place over. Rewrite this as 18 times 10, and then ask yourself, is it 10 to the -1 or 10 to the 1? And hopefully you say 10 to the -1. Because we want this number to turn back into that, which means it would be getting smaller. So times 10 to the 6, times 6, times 10 to the 12th. I'm going to go ahead and put all the numbers together. And then I'm going to put all the 10s to the whatevers together. Now, we know from earlier that, I'm going to focus on the 10s here first, that if all the bases are the same, I can just add these exponents. Now, I could take 10 to the -1 and rewrite it as 1 over 10. And if that was your intuition, you can do that. But we can also just add them. So -1 plus 6 is 5. 5 plus 12 is 17. And this is going to be 18 times 6, which is what? 108. So now, this is interesting, because if I want to write this in scientific notation, then I need to move my decimal place how many places? I need to move it two places, right? I need to rewrite it as 1.08. So then the question is, do I want to multiply by 10 squared or 10 to the negative 2? And this is 10 squared. So we still have the 10 to the 17, and so the final answer is going to be, again, if I want to keep this in scientific notation, would be 1.08 times 10. Once more, we add, because the exponents, the bases are the same, 10 to the 19. And there's my answer. Okay, so it's a little bit more thinking. It's kind of an application of what we've been talking about throughout this entire section. Hopefully it's not too bad. So if you were struggling earlier and you didn't know how to do these, go ahead now and try to do 7 and 8. So pause the video now and try those now that we've reviewed the last two. And I'm assuming that you've done that, and we can talk about them together now. So hopefully you took 1.5 and rewrote it as 15 times 10 to the negative 1. 6 is still 6 times 10 to the negative 2. And don't forget, we still have the 10 to the 4 here, so 10 to the 4. Alright, so here now, 6 and 15 are both divisible by 3, so this is 2, this is 5, so now we're left with 2/5. And we have to clean this up. Now this is interesting. These two, let's go ahead, and since the bases are the same, we can add them. So this would be 10 to the negative 2 over 10 to the third. And then we can subtract, so this is negative 2 minus 3, which is now negative 5. So this is 2/5 times 10 to the negative 5. And that's it. Oh, wait. That is an answer, but is it in scientific notation? No, sorry. So what is 2 over 5? 2 over 5 is 0.4. So we have 0.4 times 10 to the negative 5. Now again, this number has to be between, I said 0 and 1. I misspoke. It's between 1 and 10. So I have to make this into a 4. Apologize. And then we're going to multiply by what? To make that into a 4, we have to multiply by negative 1. I'm sorry, to make it to 0.4. Take 4 and change it to 0.4. We multiply by negative 1 times 10 to the negative 5. So this gives me 4 times 10 to the negative 6. And that, Breve, is your answer. Alright, let's look at this one here. So same deal, 7.6 is going to be 76 times 10 to the negative 1 times 10 squared times 6 times 10, 12. I'm going to put these two together, 76 times 6, and then we'll put the 10s together, 10 to the negative 1 times 10 squared times 10 to the 12. And by the way, this is totally legit because we are using the commutative rule, which means we can just rearrange the order. We'll just multiply these two together. So 76 times 6 is going to be 6 times 6 is 36. 42 plus 3 is 45. And then we're going to clean this up. So negative 1 plus 2 plus 12. Again, because the bases are the same, we can multiply them out. 2 plus negative 1 is 1. 1 plus 12 is 13. So 10 to the 13. Once more, this is not in scientific notation. So I need to move the decimal place over 2. Rewrite this as 4.56, which I hope is clear that you realize you multiply by negative 2. And there we have it. So hopefully this makes sense. This concludes now 4.1. I know this last bit, these last 4 problems were a little tough. So if you need a follow-up video, let me know and I'll make one for you. Alright, see you all in the next video.